Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the public forum for the 20th of July 2021. On behalf of Moonee Valley City Council, I respectfully acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which Moonee Valley is located, the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people of the Kulin Nation, and we pay respects to their spirits, ancestors, community members and elders past, present and emerging. We also extend this respect to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Although it's not possible for members of the public to join us in person tonight, tonight's virtual public forum will be live streamed on our website, and I extend a warm welcome to those who are watching. The public forum provides residents with an opportunity to present to Council on topics of interest and allows for further discussion which is not possible at a formal Council meeting. On tonight's agenda, we have one presentation from a member of the public. The presentation is from Sharon Mumford, who will present on Notice of Motion 2021/23, Public Park and Recreation Zone and Public Use Zone. If we could get Sharon with us. Oh, Sharon, you are with us. Welcome. Sharon, you have 5 minutes to present to Council. The floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Cam, and for the introduction and for having me allowed to speak tonight. I'm just going to share my screen. Just one moment. Okay, I trust that you can all see that now.
Yep.
Great. Just apologies in advance. There are two screaming children in the background and possibly a dog. So I'll try to keep them under control. That won't impact on my time, hopefully. So just very briefly, I know I've only got 5 minutes, just to introduce myself. My name's Sharon Mumford and I was raised in the north of Strathmore and continuing in North Strathmore. I've always been involved in, various sporting clubs, tennis and hockey enabling. And now before I get too old, thought I'd try my hand at football. This is our team down on Boeing Reserve, a little bit muddy, but also in the summer, I spend my time volunteering in surf lifesaving, and this is my surf boat crew that we row out from Williamstown with. So also an advocate of open space. I think you're all familiar with Strathard Reserve, and also a friend of Moonee Ponds Creek. So I'd just like to spend my time this evening to speak in relation to the notice of motion that was put forward by Councillor Isa last Tuesday, and the recording's still available, I trust, as well. In reading this notice of motion in preparation for Tuesday's meeting last week, actually felt quite hopeful that Council and residents could work toward finding a balance and a resolution, or solution, I should say, to the issues around open space use and in particular signage. This isn't a new issue. It's been raised by a number of residents over the last few years, but it feels that the momentum, I suppose, is increasing as more of us are locked down and enjoying open spaces, and the impact of some of what is seen to be oversized signage is having an impact. And so I thought it was timely that it was raised. I think the detail within that notice of motion seemed quite balanced in that it was looking for clarification. It was looking to provide a balance to support clubs who might be impacted on any decisions that were made, but also open to consultation based on what was put forward last week. And I don't think that there's any question that Council realised the importance of sporting groups in our municipality. And I think there's a number of wonderful facilities that have been invested in particular Cross Keys and Fairburn and Auburn Park. These are recent photos taken of these fantastic pavilions, and I think that are envy for many clubs in and around the municipality. So it sort of makes sense that Council and residents and sponsors continue to support these clubs to make the best out of the investment that's been put in by Council. Equally, it's understood that local business are an important part of this support, and local sponsors are very proud and they've got a loyal history of supporting community groups. And as I said, it's only over the last few years that it seems there's been a shift in the dynamic, and there's been a bit of a loss of balance, and the size of some of the signage is encroaching on, and impacting other residents. And that's why this raises, the concern's been raised. And this is why I think it was a timely opportunity to raise this notice of motion to readdress the balance. This is my local area. So these photos are my photos because I just live down the road from here. And I just wanted to point out the size of some of these posters. You know, they're 12 square metres, a lot of these, and that's the average. There are bigger banners. And there's over 20 of these size signs just around this reserve. And that's quite significant. That's not just your waist height signs. I mean, I don't want to suggest what is reasonable, but just the significant size of these. And I think people need to go down and actually have a look at them to appreciate what we're referring to. And I suppose it's not just the size of the signs, it's what's being advertised as well. I mean, some people might take issue with gambling being advertised, for instance. So again, this is another angle of the same reserve. And sorry, that's me. That's Teddy, my dog. Just going past the creek here, if you're walking or cycling, running along the creek, it then turns into a blind corner, a dog leg. So if you're cycling coming from the Strathmore proper side, your vision has been impacted all the way coming to this dog bend. And this is where the issue around safety has been concerned for this particular area of residents. And there's bugs in the area, bicycle user groups, bugs, that have floated the idea that pedestrians, dog walkers try not to use the path during commuting times, because there's been quite a few near misses and accidents that have been issued on SnapSolve, Send SnapSolve. So it blocks a lot of the afternoon light. It's a distraction, it impacts on vision. So it's just not the unsightly size of it for some residents, but it's also a safety aspect that we're trying to draw attention to. From the most recent council meeting, I suppose it was evident that there are planning laws around signage. And I suppose, you know, most clubs seem to be following these. I mean, I'm not totally across what these planning laws and these rules are, but it seems that some clubs seem to be following, but others don't. I'm just wondering, do clubs know what their responsibilities are, what the laws are, what the planning requirements are? Or if they do know, are they choosing to ignore it? I don't know. I suppose this is another issue that residents would like to know. Where are we at? You know, has it been addressed? As I said, the concern's been raised, I know, for at least 3 years ago. And so we need an update. What's the consultation process? And I suppose going back to that notice of motion, it is asking for that balance. We need to address this issue. As I said, what is reasonable? It's not all clubs. This is just, you know, this is Strathmore Football Ground and this is Duda. You know, that seems reasonable, but it's not up to me to suggest what is and what isn't reasonable. I suppose that's a process of consultation, but if these clubs can not have to use oversized signage, there possibly are alternatives that are viable to excessive signage to support clubs financially. I suppose advertising and sponsorship is meant to be a creative industry. Can we not be a bit more creative in the way that we use sponsors and sponsorship money and support these businesses as well as supporting the clubs? As I said, no, that to me, I think that looks reasonable, but that's not up to me. It's about a consultation and how that impacts clubs. And also there's a degree of equity between clubs. You know, would you have an agreed size? Okay, every club can have, I don't know, 50 square metres of signage on their ground. How they choose to use it, it's up to them. Again, we need to start raising conversation in a constructive way that's not going to cause angst or further frustration. And it's addressing that understanding. I was in a recent Zoom meeting with Councillor Adams and Councillor Sharp. I don't think she's here tonight. And there are some very vocal community members that want to be a part of this, and their appreciation of open space and the importance to mental health, the importance to how they spend their time. So again, that's just another opportunity to develop that understanding to get that balance. I think I've said balance quite a bit today, just sort of my final note, really. is that, councillors are acknowledging that this is a complex issue. And I think after last Tuesday's meeting, it was pretty complex and it sort of dipped and turned and around in circles a bit. So when these issues, and I think it's important that it is disseminated on platforms such as social media, whatever form of platform it's taken, but I think there's also an obligation of responsibility that when these platforms are used, they're also done in a reasonable way. So if you're acknowledging that it is a complex issue, the next line shouldn't be, this will mean that all the signs are going to disappear around the municipality. Businesses are going to go bankrupt, clubs are going to fold. That's a motive, and I think it's a bit unhelpful. So I would ask the question, what happens around code of conduct on using these platforms to, again, address the balance, because I think it causes degree of division within different groups within our community, and it gets quite angry and it's unhelpful and unnecessary, I would suggest, but that's just my opinion on that. So I'm feeling hopeful that council officers and councillors will engage with all stakeholders, whether that's clubs, residents, bike user groups, and the Men's Shed, Gem Club, everybody that uses that space, to take a reasonable and balanced approach to how advertising is used, and also how we disseminate that consultation process to avoid the anger and frustration that many of us are witness to on social media platforms during these notice of motion. So I hope I didn't go beyond 5 minutes. That's pretty much my presentation. So thank you very much again for your time. I'll stop my share now. That's all right.
Thanks, Sharon. You're our only one tonight, so I'm sure an extra few minutes isn't going
I feel like,
to impact the timeline a great deal. Councillors, obviously a comprehensive presentation, and I would just preface any responses by saying that from the notice of motion last week, we will have a report coming back to council by the end of August, so not to preempt any decision in your questions or commentary, but are there any questions of Sharon? Councillor Tyson?
Thanks for your presentation, Sharon, and obviously you did say in there the subjective nature of a lot of this, and to my mind, it's sort of, I think a lot of people are sort of assessing whether it's quantity or height or, square meterage. What do you think is the biggest issue or your main concern?
I think I'm just going to speak to my area of Buckley Ward in the first, and it's about safety, I think, for us. But then I hear rumblings as you go down the rabbit hole of social media, other people's opinions as well. And I hear bits and pieces. For me, it's sort of a safety. For some people, you're surrounded by advertising and, your phone and media all the time. You walk out when it's boom in front of you. So I suppose, people don't want to be exposed to oversized signage. I think it's the aesthetics of it. It's the natural light. It's the artificial nature of it. Different people get satisfaction in different ways from open space. So I don't want to speak necessarily for them, but for me, it's very much around the safety and a bit of the aesthetics. I mean, you feel shut out of your area when you've got these barriers put up, and that sort of goes against what open space is meant to be about for everyone to share. I don't know, it feels very enclosed.
Councillor Bedio.
Hi, Sharon. Thanks so much for your presentation tonight. I support a lot of what you were saying. I just want to make the point, make the comment though, that part of last week's amendment to the notice of motion did obviously reinstate the moratorium. Part of that wording states that enforcement can continue if there are amenity or safety concerns. So if you do have or know of signage that has, like you spoke about the dog leg, potentially bring that up with council. And if they assess that to be a danger, then that's something that they can probably act on. And likewise for amenity, if there is any signs that are in particular causing some amenity concerns to you or others, bring that up with council, and the officers will be obliged to act on your request there. I also just want to state, reasonability isn't, unfortunately, the test with signage in PPRZ. It's very much laid out in the planning scheme and has been for a long time. Unfortunately, based off what I've seen from Duda and Strathmore, even though you mentioned that they were reasonable, I still don't think they would pass the test under the planning scheme, under a category 4, I believe the PPRZ is. So understand what you're saying. There's a level of reasonability there, and I fully agree with you on that. But unfortunately, we're not bound by reasonability. We're bound by the planning scheme. So while all of us might sit around and say that signage is reasonable, in most cases, in most reserves, the signage that they're allowed is negligible. And so, we're obviously waiting for the report to come back. That's going to give us options moving forward. But I just wanted to point that out, that yes, reasonability makes sense, but unfortunately, it's not down to reasonability. So, but thank you very much for your presentation.
Thanks, Councillor Bedio. Any other councillor have any questions? Councillor Byrne.
Thanks, Matt, and thanks, Sharon, for your presentation. I'm just looking back through notes. Obviously, this has been going on for quite a few years. The signs that you were showing of Strathnava, is that the southeastern corner?
Would you like me to put the presentation up and just pop back onto the one that you... Hang on, just give me 1 second.
I think it is, Sam, if my bearings are right in the top of my head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
The
that's,
southeastern corner?
Yes, that is.
So that's obviously been brought up as a safety concern previously.
yes, we had councillors, the previous councillors before the most recent term all came out to see it.
Yes.
I haven't had any follow-up. I'd have to speak to the neighbours that came out with to find out what the update was on that. But we
So
have
it was deemed as a safety concern at the time. Was there any changes to the signs since July 2019?
probably just more and bigger.
So no, just hold on. So no removing of signs.
Not that I recall.
Right.
And
okay.
some neighbours have taken regularly update with photos. So I could go back through the files, but no, not that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you. We can follow.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Sharon. Appreciate that.
Councillor Byrne, any other questions, councillors? If not, thank you very much, Sharon, for being our presenter. Our presenter this evening. Those watching online, that concludes our public forum for tonight. Thank you for watching and for participating, Sharon. And our next public forum information will be available on the website, and you're more than welcome to join us